everybody. This is take 2. This time I think it's working. So hopefully people will be able to find me. I can see myself this time. This happened a couple weeks ago that I had to start again. People are finding me now. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's weird because it's like it doesn't connect or something. I've got good internet tonight, so all right. So it looks like people are starting to find me now. Yay! Okay. So I can see, oh, here's everybody. Hello, everybody. Okay, so I'll put this back over here for right now. I can see people's comments coming through. And yeah, I don't know what's going on. This is weird because I haven't had any problems with StreamYard at all until the last couple weeks. So let's see. Got the countdown this time. Yeah, see, and it's on my tablet. I could never get it on my tablet, Cindy. So, yep. Sorry, guys. Finally got in. Yeah, Marianne, it did the same thing it did a couple of weeks ago, that it just didn't work. I don't know what's going on. If something timed out, because I start, I set up the thing a little bit early. Maybe I need to wait a little longer. Who knows? Hand sewing my felt flowers. Is that Lynn? How come you're hand sewing them? Oh, are you making the little daisies, you mean? Hi, Clara. How are you? Cool. Okay, so I think we're working now. So sorry about that, guys. It's well, the Jan, I don't know what happened. The same thing happened that happened a couple weeks ago, that it just didn't connect, and then I couldn't even find it on my tablet. So normally it just pops right in, and nope, didn't do it that time. So anyway, I think we're rolling now, so that's good. Okay, so tonight we're going to work on the Sweet Days of Summer. I just thought this was such a cute little pillow. This is the first of the June bench buddies. And I am doing fine, Shannon. Thank you. So we're going to do just one of these little squares. These little appliques are very similar. And I figured you guys can all handle it. We'll do one in class. We'll do the cherries. And then I'll trim them all. And then I'm going to show you how to put the sentiment block in. I'm not going to sew the whole thing because it's just letters. So I thought I'd at least show you how to put it into the hoop, talk about, the fabrics and all that stuff. So this is what we're going to do tonight. Next week will be the square bench buddy on Sunday. Okay. So this is the little pineapple. I just thought it was so cute. Very different block. I had never done one like this. Are these available to rewatch? Yes, they are. I don't know who that is. I can't see. Yes, they are. I have all of these up on YouTube. Is this Dobbsy? Yeah, I have all of these up on YouTube in a playlist called Bench Buddies. And I have all of this. We're down to the last, few, because we've been doing these for almost a year now. So, okay, so we're going to do this one next week on Sunday. But remember, starting tomorrow night on Monday, we're going to have class also. We're going to have a sew along, and we're going to start working on Sweet Land of Liberty. Okay. And this one will be on Mondays at 7 p.m. So I am going to go an hour later. We're going to start at 7 instead of 6. Sometimes I have appointments on Mondays, and I want to make sure I can get my dad fed and everything. So we're going to go at 7 on Monday nights. Okay. So tomorrow night at 7, we will start the first 2 blocks of this. And then I have pre-recorded the second 2 blocks for the first week. So there's 4 blocks per week for the first 2 weeks. And then we're going to do the borders and flanges, and then we're going to assemble it. Okay. And it'll all be done before the 4th of July. So this will be the Monday night sew along. So, okay. And then I'll show you at the end, I'll show you the July pillows. I got the July pillows done, and those are really fun. So, okay. Yes, I'm very excited about doing Land of Liberty. Sweet Land of Liberty. It is so cute. And it was a very relaxing pillow top. There's not a lot of There's like no embellishments on it. It was just all sewing and quilting, and it was very relaxing, and the blocks are not hard. So it was really fun. Now, I did put up a video today about for some of you that have the smaller hoops, the 6x10 hoops. I did a little video about how you can get around the fact that some of the quilting designs may be a little bit big. So make sure you watch that. I put it up on YouTube under Sweet Land of Liberty, and I also put it up on Facebook today. Okay. So then tomorrow night we'll do a live class, and I'll put up the second video of blocks right after class. So they'll all be available. Okay. So, all right. So let's get on with June here. So we're going to do June first. Okay. And let me turn my camera around here. Give me a minute. Let's see here. Hopefully everything's working. Yep, looks like it. Turn the microphone to the other microphone. All right, so everybody still hearing me okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about the fabric. There's going to be a background piece for each one of these 4 blocks. So there's 4 blocks, these 3 little ones, and then the longer one at the bottom. Okay. So you're going to have your fabrics for the 3 little blocks. Let me just grab my blocks here. I pre-sewed a few things so we wouldn't have to spend so much time. So here is my strawberry. Pull this back a little bit. Here's my strawberry block. And on the back of that, I'm going to put Shapeflex. Could you show the front of the CD? Whoever asked that, no, I can't. This is the May through August Bench Buddies. Actually, I can. I take that back. I have it on the front of my book. Here we go. It's the May through August Bench Buddies. Sorry about that. It's the one with the little bicycles and the pineapple. Yeah, I made a photocopy of the front of it so I could see it. Sorry about that. Okay. So anyway, the background pieces, all 4 of the background pieces have Shapeflex on the back. All right. So you're going to have Shapeflex on the back of all of those. The strawberry block has the little piece up for the strawberry. There's a little piece of applique fabric. The watermelon has a little piece for the watermelon here, and the rest of it's sewn. Okay. And then the cherries have, here's your background fabric with my Shapeflex on the back. And then there's a piece for the cherry and a piece for the little leaves. So we're going to sew that out tonight. And then the sentiment block is just the block. Let me find my other one. I can't get a hold of it here. With the Shapeflex on the back. Okay. So it's like 4x11, and then you put the Shapeflex on the back. Okay. So that's all of those. And then you're also going to need a little piece of rickrack for the bottom. And then there are a couple of the little pieces, for the backing. So the back pieces, the 2 short pieces. One's 6x9.5, this one, and the other one is 3.5x6. Okay. So that's the 2 little back pieces on this one. Okay. Those are pretty simple pieces to cut. So I've got all my pieces and parts over here. So, all right. Now the one thing, as usual, that I do for the stabilizer is I do not use cutaway. I am using tearaway stabilizer on all of these because I like to remove the tearaway. So all of my, almost all of these, I use tearaway instead of the cutaway that they call for. All right. So that's one of the things you can see that I have crossed off here. Crossed off cutaway, put tearaway. And I'm only going to use just a few colors. For this one tonight, I think we're only using the red and the green, I think, for this one. But you can see I just used a couple colors of green, a color for the watermelon. Mine was actually called watermelon. Red, black, and white for this whole pillow. So there wasn't too many colors in it. Okay. All right. So let's see. So the first 2 blocks are the strawberry blocks. So I've already pre-sewn these, and we'll do the cherry. I put the Shapeflex on the back. And what you're going to do with this is you're going to actually, this is done a little differently. We're going to hoop the tearaway stabilizer in the hoop. And then this one has a placement line and a tack down line instead of having, like we did with a lot of the other ones. I just kind of glued it down to the stabilizer and then just hoop the whole thing. Now this one's going to have, this one's a little different. Okay. So the strawberry was first, and I already sewed that one, and then the little watermelon. Okay, so those two blocks are done the same way as the one we're going to do tonight, which is the cherry. Okay. So here's my first two blocks. I'll show those to you again. Okay, so here's my little blocks. And you can see that what I did is I hooped the stabilizer, and then there's going to be a placement line for this fabric, and then it's going to tack it down to the hoop. Okay. And I left the stabilizer in until after I do my trimming, because I like to leave the stabilizer in while I'm doing the trimming. Okay. So there's the first two blocks, and you can see these are all three of these are basically done the same way, but they're just slightly different. But most of them, there's one little applique in each one, and then the rest of it's sewn. So I didn't figure we had to do all three in the class tonight. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do our cherry block. So I've got my yellow background here with my shape flex on the back. I got my tearaway in my 4x4 hoop. These fit in a 4x4, so it's kind of nice. You don't have to. The biggest hoop for this was a 5x7. And let's see. I think I just used my red thread because I'm going to use red for the cherries first. So I'm just going to put my red thread in the needle. And I have my regular embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, just white regular bobbin thread in the bobbin. And let's see, I have a number 11 needle in my machine, number 11, 7511 needle, embroidery needle. All right. So, but again, I did not put cutaway. I used tearaway. So this is a tearaway that's in here. All right. So the first step is going to be the placement line for the background. So this one's just a little different than the other ones that we did like this. So we're going to sew the placement line first. And I'm going to get my little background piece ready here. And then we're going to lay this down. And it's better to use, just so you know, it's better to use a very visible color because we're going to use this as a cutting line when we go to trim our block. So make sure you can see it and don't make it too matchy. Otherwise, it may be hard to trim. All right, so we're going to place this down. I'm going to try to get it as centered as I can. We got plenty of fabric, so don't worry. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and do step 2, which is going to be the tack down. Hi, Jenny. Yeah, on StreamYard, sometimes I can't see. Remember, after the class, if you go back into this post, in the description, there's a little thing that you can click, and it will make you visible to me on Facebook. Because otherwise, I don't see your names when I'm looking at StreamYard. That's why I have this other computer. So if you haven't done that, please do that because then I can see who it is. Okay. All right, so then we've done step 2, and I think the next step then, we're going to move on to the applique. So step 3 is going to be the tack or the placement line for the cherries. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave my red in for this one because that's what color my cherries are going to be. And I even had a little piece of their cherry fabric, so I thought that was cool. So we're going to do our applique here with the 2 little cherries. Hopefully I remembered my scissors here. I was playing with the felt flowers this afternoon. So I've got some of them down pat, but the other ones I'm still struggling with. So Jan has to go do a couple more trials yet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay this down over my cherries, my placement line there. And we're going to stitch number 4, which is going to be the tack down line for those. I have to figure out what color I'm using next. I think it's the green. I did get some new lights this week. So last weekend I put up some new LED like shop lights, and oh my gosh, it's so much better out here. I can see. That was my big thing last weekend. I put up some shop lights. Okay, so now we're going to trim these and trim close to stitches, and these are going to have, I believe they have satin stitches on them. Yeah, so they'll be nicely covered when you get done. Get the trimming done here. I like these double curved scissors. So some of you ask me what kind of scissors I use, and these are Ginger 6-inch double curves. And these work really great for applique because they have a very sharp tip and you can get real close with them. I've tried the applique scissors with the little duck bills, and they just don't work for me very well. Maybe it's because I'm left-handed. I don't know. I cut right-handed, but I've always had a little trouble with the duck bills. I can't get as close with them. All right, so we're going to trim that. Any questions so far? Everybody know what we're doing? These are pretty simple little blocks. That's why I thought, well, if we just did one, you can make the other two. They're pretty easy. Okay, and then we'll put it together. The putting it together is fun. All right. So there's those, and now the next one is going to be the leaf. So I'm going to switch over to my forest green. So I'm going to use my darker green thread because I have this for my leaves. So I'm going to grab my darker green thread here. These have been so fun to do. I can't believe we're almost done with them all. We've been working on these for almost a year. Hello, everybody. People are still saying hello. All right, so we're going to do the leaf. This is the placement line for the little leaf. And then we're going to lay our fabric, of course, over the placement line. And we're going to stitch down number 6, which is going to be the tack down line for that. And then we'll trim that one. Now the other ones are going to be basically the same, the other blocks. So this one's going to have the placement, the tack down and the placement and the tack down for the strawberry. And then this is a sewn piece, and these are sewn. And then the little watermelon, it's going to do the applique. And then the rest, the little rind is all sewn, and so are the little seeds. Okay, so they're basically done in the same order as this one. All right, so we're going to trim our leaf. Maybe. Yep, so sorry for the delay tonight. You just never know. I don't know what's going on with. I've noticed that Facebook's been kind of weird lately. My app is really odd, like it doesn't move, like you're trying to scroll down your feed and nothing's moving right. I don't know. Maybe it's Facebook. Okay, so the next step is going to be the satin stitches for the cherries. That's step number 7, and I'm going to go ahead and put my red back in. Oop. Put the red back in for that. And somebody asked me the other day, it's one of the new people, what machine I was sewing on. So I'll just remind everybody I'm sewing on a Brother Luminaire. Well, this is an XP1 that upgraded to an XP2. Love my machine. I was, I love my dream machine, but man, this one is just like incredible. I've really enjoyed this machine a lot. It gets used a lot. All right, so we're going to do the satin stitching. And let's see, make sure I get the right color for the, for the leaves. Okay. So it's going to do the satin stitching on the leaves and also the little stems in the same color. Now I'll do the next one. You know, I really love mine too. Yeah, that's something I have to say. I've been very, very happy with mine. And the when we, you know, when the pandemic started, we I was home a lot, and so man, did my machine get used a lot. I'm still home a lot, but I still use my machine a lot. But I would get up and sew all day long because we were closed for a little while, and I'm sure glad I had this beautiful machine to sew on. Okay, so we got one of them done. Yep, it looks like other people like theirs too. People are giving me thumbs up, so you must like your luminaires, huh? Hi, Marcia. All right, so it's doing the little detail in there. Now it's going to do the other straw or the other little cherry. I just thought this was like one of my I think they're all my favorite. I mean, every one of them I really enjoyed making. So there was a couple that were a little bit time consuming. That very first one that we made was in September of last year, and that one had a lot of stuff on it. Had a lot of applique, and it was so pretty though. That was the fall one with all of the glitter leaves and everything. Oh, I just really like that one. But I have to say that's probably one of my favorites. But oh my gosh, that one took a long time to do. Had lots and lots and lots of applique. And then the next one is very different. The one with the pineapple is very different. Oh, this is sewing. What speed do you usually use on your applique and the regular embroidery? I usually sew at about 7 or 800, Clara. I like to clip along pretty good, so this is probably at 800. But this is a little different. So next week when we do this, I'm going to pre-sew this part. This is just an applique, but then we're going to do this part. And this part was interesting because it's actually like all done with these little half square triangles. So it was very interesting, and it makes into an applique piece. So that was very different. I'd never done anything like that before. So yeah, I think I'm at 800, Clara. Sometimes 700. It just depends. When I teach a class with a bunch of people in the class with me, I usually turn it down to 700 because a lot of people sew at 600. Now your machine, your Dream Machine, yeah, you could sew, it gives you increments of 100. All right, so then the next piece is going to be the satin stitches on the leaf here and also the stems. So we'll put the green back in for that. And this is the darker green. Oops. I think it's 10. It's forest green, 1092. These are the brother colors, and I used 800 red. But no, I don't like to sew too fast on the machines. Some people like to rev theirs way up to 1,000, but it's awful fast. So if anything happens, everything, is moving awfully fast. But I do sew fairly quickly. I like 800. That seems to be a good speed for me. Things move along a little bit, and the older machines used to have different increments, like they were like 1,000 stitches a minute, and then it was then 600. They weren't like 100 stitch increments that you could go down, but the newer machines all have that, so it's very nice. Do you sell kits for the Bench Buddies? I do not, Connie, because we do not sell fabric at Shield Sewing Center. We're not a fabric store. We just sell sewing machines. So I got my kits from my girlfriend's quilt shop in Utah online. My girlfriend's quilt shop. That's a good place for kits. They have lots, and it's the sister of the gal that runs Kimberbell. So I usually buy my kits there. I have lots of scraps, so most of my kit that you're seeing now came out of the scraps from the first one. and a few extras because I did buy the kits for them. I like, I'm not real good at picking fabric sometimes, so I usually buy a kit if I can. And I bought a kit for the Sweet Land of Liberty pillow from there as well, from my girlfriend's quilt shop. So, and I always cut out a second one when I cut the first one, so then I can look at the fabrics and match them up. But I do have quite a lot of scraps now from Kimberbell, so I can usually cut everything out of my scraps, which is really, really nice. And I bought one of those basics boxes. It's the great big boxes with all the back quarters. And if you can find one of those, that's really, really nice because it has like 92 back quarters that are all their basics. And so I can pretty much cut anything I need pretty much now. So, all right. So there's our cherries. Got a little tail hanging out over here, so we'll trim that. What do you think? There's the little cherries. They're so cute. Okay. So that was the square ones. Now, the one thing I want to show you, oops, I got another tail. I still have trouble with tails. I'm going to have to ask Ron about this again. Okay. So the next part of this, so you do the 3 little blocks, and they're all done the same way. Okay. The 3 little 4x4 blocks. They end up being about 3.5. Done. Now the next block then is done a little differently as well. So I was just going to show you like the beginning of it so you knew how it went in, and we won't finish it because I already have it done. So you don't have to sit through all those letters, but I wanted you to know how you do the quilt, the hooping, and I actually do it a little differently. So that one's done in a 5x7 hoop. Give me a second here. I'm just going to take this out of my hoop. Don't take the stabilizer off. Just leave the stabilizer on because we're going to trim those in a minute. Okay, let me find my other hoop here. I just had some scrap fabric I used for this one. So, okay, so I cut another piece of fabric here, and I hooped a piece of the tearaway, again, tearaway, for the sentiment block at the bottom. So this is the Sweet Days of Summer one, okay? And it's got the tearaway in there. It calls for cutaway, but I use tearaway. I have my shape flex on the back, okay, of my fabric. Now leave in a piece of thread, some thread that you can see again, because we're going to use the first placement line is going to be like a placement line for where you're going to lay this in. Okay, so I'm going to leave my green in just so I can see where I'm going to go. So let me grab my design here. So this is the sentiment block. I think that's what they call it. Let me find that one. And oops, there's the embroidery files. Let's see, June. All right, yeah. June, this is the one that says Sweet Days of Summer on it. All right, and so this one fits in a 5x7. And the first step is going to be to sew out a placement line. So I'm just going to leave my green thread in there because that way I can see what I'm doing. And then the other thing you want to do is take your fabric and fold it in half, lengthwise, the long ways, fold it in half and just finger press one side of it so you know where the center is. So see, I turned it right sides together and I'm just finger pressing it right there, okay? Because that crease then is going to go on this line. So what I did when I do this is I just sewed this out first, and then I took my fabric, and this worked better for me instead of all the taping, because I don't like to sew through the tape because I have a hard time getting it out. So what I did is I sewed my placement line in my hoop, and I took my glue stick, my fabric glue stick, and I just put glue along that line. And then I took my folded piece. There was where my center is, okay? And then I just laid it. You lay it on the little notch. You can see that little notch that's sticking up. That's the center. And then you're going to lay the bottom of it along the line that's sewed, like this. And then I'm just going to stick it down into my fabric glue. This is one of those Soline glue sticks. And the regular Dritz one works fine too, whichever one you have. I just used this one because it was a thinner one. Okay, and I'm just going to press it down on there. And I'm not going to, I did not tape it. Okay, so the next step then, step number 2, is going to be the tack down lines, but they also become the trimming lines. So when we go to trim this, these 2 lines that it's going to sew next are actually going to be our trimming lines. So it's going to do the top, and it's going to anchor it down at the top here. And you shouldn't have any trouble with your foot. Just watch your foot, you know, when you get down here, but it was on the fabric, so it should be fine. And the glue seemed to hold it really well. And you want to have a visible color here too, so that you can see when you go to trim, because you'll see mine is in a color that I can see. And then here's the little notch, and that's going to help us know where our center is again. Okay. And then the next step, of course, is going to be all the letters. So I figured if I showed you this part, this is the hardest part, and the letters would just sew. And now we're ready for trimming. Okay. So this one, I'm not gonna finish this one, but you can see in there, there's gonna be one of our trimming lines, and then this is gonna be the other one, and then it shows the little mark where the center is again. Okay. All right. So that's the sentiment block. All right. So let's go. I'm gonna move the camera, and we're going to do some trimming then. Now these don't use the orange pop rulers either, so this one's done differently. These are trim. So the 3 little blocks, we're going to do the little blocks first. And those blocks are trimmed on the line that was the tack down line. Okay. So give me a second. I'm just going to move my camera over a little bit so we can trim here. If I put this in sewing mode, it'll move my arm out of the way. Then you can see. And we'll get our machine ready. We're going to do some sewing anyway. So. All right, we'll move this over here, hopefully. So you can, I've got my Martelli rotary mat over here on the side. Give me a second, I just need to move my computer a little closer. The cord's not very long on this camera, so. All right, so I'm gonna lay this up here so you can see, hopefully. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've got my blocks all here. If you give me a second, I'm going to plug my iron back in, because this block was a little bit wrinkly. I like to just press along the outside edges, so when I go to trim that I don't have a real wrinkly mess there to trim. So, okay. Oh, and then here's my little back pieces. Set those aside for a minute. Okay, so these are the ones that we did, and it says to trim the strawberry block directly on the tack down cut line, and also the watermelon block, and also the cherry block. So these are going to be different because I've already pressed these. You can see I've kind of pressed these out. I'm just going to use a regular ruler, but the little rotary mat helps with this. So I'm just going to trim right on those lines. So line it up with your ruler and just trim right on those lines. Okay. Get them all trimmed here. Oops. I have a tendency to slip with this ruler for some reason. It works better on this mat though, because it's not as long. This is like a 15-inch ruler. I like it. Okay, let's get this. And then we'll take the paper off. Oops. I did 2 of them in on the same piece of stabilizer. That's why they were together instead of separate. So I was using a bigger piece of stabilizer at the store one day when I was working on these. All right, so let me get these. And they don't do this trimming method very often because this trimming method, you know, when the machine sews, it's going to make things kind of pull in a little bit. So unless the item is fairly small, they normally do not use this trimming method, but these were pretty small. So they came out a good, you know, a really good size. So they don't use this trimming method very often. I can't remember exactly. I think they were like about 3.5. They were a little over 3.5-inch blocks, I think. Okay. So there's my little watermelon. Here's my strawberry. Give me just a second here. And I will press my little cherry block here just a little bit. There we go. Should trim better now. Is everybody still hearing me okay? Hopefully. I looked like I might have possibly frozen for a second, but I'm not sure. I'm trying. It's hard for me to tell. Get these out of my way. With my luck, I would cut right through one of them, you know. All right, so there's one. So we're going to trim these. So I'm trying to cut right on the little stitch line. All good? Awesome. Thank you. It's hard for me to tell because I'm delayed on my tablet. You know, the tablet's one thing and I'm looking at another thing on the computer. Okay, so now after I get that done, now I can go ahead and take my stabilizer off. I like to remove the paper stabilizer, you know, the tearaway. It's some of it at least. It just makes it less stiff. And I like it better because it seems to be, it's more supple afterwards. So that's why I don't like the cutaway on there very well. And technically, if you're using these non-stretchy fabrics, you should be using a tearaway. So that's usually what I use. All right, so we're going to take this one off. This is a strawberry. Okay, there's our little strawberry. And here's our watermelon. And get a hold of the edge of it here. Okay. All right, so there's a little watermelon. Okay, now that this block, we have to trim our sentiment blocks. Let me get these out of our way, get all this stabilizer off of here. And I'm going to set these over here. And then we're going to trim this one. Now, this one is a little different. So there's some special instructions for this one. It says, measure 5 inches to the left of horizontal center marked that has the stitch that marked by that stitch, and then 5 inches to the right. So we're going to go 5 inches each way. So it's going to end up being 10 inches long. So this little mark right here, hopefully you can see it. Try to make it dark enough. It's right here. You're going to measure 5 inches to the left and to the right. So what I did with mine is I just put the 5-inch ruler mark on the ruler, and I just made sure that I was good and straight, and I could use the top line up here to help me. And I just put the 5-inch mark on here. They had you marking it with a marking pen and stuff, but I just used my ruler. So I put the 5-inch mark on my ruler, which is right here. Just made sure everything was good and straight. Just making sure I got it here. There we go. And then I'm just going to trim up. Okay, we'll turn it over and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we need it. It's going to be a total of 10 inches long. We can use that mark to help us. Got the 5-inch on that, right on the little centerpiece. Okay, like that. And then we're going to trim right on those little tack down lines because they were tack down lines, but they're also the cutting lines. So I'm just going to put my ruler right on that top line here. And trim across. And then I think they said it was, yeah, 2 7/8, which is a very odd size. So it's just a little, almost 3. And then I'm going to do that on the bottom. So I'm just going to lay my ruler on the bottom placement line, or actually tack down line, I should say, and trim that one. And it looks like I'm pretty close to 7/8, 2 7/8. It's an odd size. So, all right. So I'll trim that off, and there's the sentiment block. Okay. And I'm going to remove my stabilizer from that one. See if I can get it out of most of the letters. There we go. Okay. So there's our sentiment block. All right. So I think that's the trimming. And then I removed all my tearaway. That was the other note that I made here. And now we're ready for assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here. I'm going to move the camera back over, and then we will get ready to assemble this little guy. We're going to put some rickrack on. I love rickrack. I've always loved rickrack. So, oops. Let's see if I can get my... Oh, we still got people coming in. Hi, everybody. Don't forget you can watch later. If you didn't get to see the beginning of it, you can always watch later. And I'll put it up on YouTube right after class. So, okay. So we're going to get set up for some sewing here. Let me get this out of the way. We don't need this one. And let's see. These over here. And, oh, I need my foot. So I'm going to change my foot here to my J foot. Had my embroidery foot on before. Put some sewing thread in. So we're going to change to sewing thread. Let's see. I think I'll use my gray. Well, let's see. I think the first thing I got to put on is that rickrack. So how about we put some lime green in there? I've got some lime green cotton thread. So we'll put that in. So we'll put this in first. Hopefully I have enough on there so I don't have to wind a bobbin for you. But you know, that happens, doesn't it? All right, get this on. Whoop, come back here. So I think the first thing we're going to do is put our rickrack on. They have you put it together first, but I think let's put the rickrack on real quick first, and then we'll go back. God forbid I do something in the right order, huh? We'll do it this way, since I've already got this switched over. And here's my lime green thread. I like this Pima cotton thread. I've got some that I bought at Craftsy and some that I get at Hobby Lobby. That's the only thread I buy there. But they have this nice Pima cotton. It's really nice thread. Goes to the machines really nicely. And they have lots of colors. So Tim always calls me a thread snob. I'm very careful what kind of thread I buy. Okay, so it says, so we're going to skip a couple of sections up here and then we'll go back. So we're going to do step number 6 right here where it says to sew in place approximately a 1/2 inch below the sentiment, the little piece of rickrack. Hope I got to get my rickrack here. So what I did is I took my ruler and I turned over my sentiment block. And I took my ruler and I lined up the 1/2 inch like that. And then I grabbed my Frixion pen or my, I think all I've got is Frixion pens here. I need to bring my other pens home again. My new ones, I like those better, but they're at the store. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 1/2 inch down from the bottom of the sentiment, it said. So I'm going to, yeah, so the bottom of the sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that with my pen here. Maybe, if I can do this for you. It's hard on the sewing machine, sorry. I'm struggling. So get that marked. Did Did it mark? Enough that I can see it anyway. All right, so there's where we're going to put our rickrack. Wherever I put the lid for this. Well, lay it up here and I'll find it. Oh, here it is. I found it. So what I do usually when I need to do stuff like this, it works really well for me, is to take my glue stick again and just put glue stick along that line that I just drew. Okay. And then I'm just going to glue my rickrack down, because then I know that my rickrack is going to stay put when I go to sew it on. So I'm just going to glue it down there. Right on my line. I'm trying to keep it as straight as I can. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? What'd I do? Does it look pretty straight? I think that looks pretty good. And it covers up that line, and that's those Frixion pens are those you know, heat ones. So if I hit it with the iron, it'll heat away anyway. So I think that looks pretty good, doesn't it? This one looks like it's a little crooked, so we'll take this one up just a little bit. There we go. All right. Then I'm just going to go ahead, and I've got my needle in the center needle position, and I've got it. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch down the center of this. So you have to kind of eyeball this, and this thread really matches this really well. Whoops, second here. Every now and then, my feed dogs don't come up when I switch from sewing to embroidery. So I just have to do a needle up and down. There we go. If that ever happens to you when you switch from sewing or embroidery to sewing, just just stop and then do a needle up and down. Stop sewing, trying to sew, and then do a needle up and down, and then they'll come up. There we go. All right, so I'm just going right down the center. You kind of have to eyeball this because, it's kind of wavy. And it looks pretty good. There we go. I think I did it. All right, what do you think? Does that look pretty good? So there's my little rickrack. Let's trim the end of this off a little bit. I thought it's easier to put the rickrack on just the block than it is the whole piece. So I think I did the other one this way too. Then with it all together. So, okay, there we go. So there's our rickrack. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that green thread off, and we'll go back to my gray, and then we're going to assemble this. So we're just about done. This is the fun part, putting it together. I love putting these together. It's always so exciting to get them done. And I've got some gray Pima cotton, so I'll put that silvery color in there. It's always a good color. It matches everything. I can find a bobbin now. And next week, the square one, that pineapple one, when I started working on it, I'm like, wow, this is different, because it's just a very different applique technique. I'd never used that before. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's very different. Okay. So now we're going to put our little blocks together. So the first thing we have to put together is the 3 little square blocks. So the strawberry goes first. Make sure I get them right side up. So this one's going to go first, and then the watermelon goes second. So it's like this. So we're going to put these two together first. So I can get all my stabilizer out. And this one, you need a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch my machine to the Q tab for quilting and Q02. So that way it moves my needle over to the right, and I can use the right hand side of my J-foot for my 1/4 inch seam. So I use that a lot. Okay, and then I'm going to get those nice and even. Give me just a second. I got my camera just in the wrong spot for my arm. There we go. Okay, so we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam. Sew these together. People are still coming in. Hi, everybody. Glad you could come join us. Okay, so there's my first ones. And then we're going to put the little cherry block on. Make sure I got my watermelon right. Yep. And then get the cherry block on. Put this one on. Quarter-inch seam again. Yeah, I just love putting these little pillows together. They're so much fun. It's like all of a sudden they just come together and they're so cute. All right, so I got these done. Now I'm going to run over to my iron, and I'm going to iron these open. So I like to iron these seams open because of that Shapeflex on there is kind of stiff, and it makes it easier to, it lays a little bit flatter. So I'm going to press these open real quick with my iron, okay? Okay. That looks pretty good. So there's my first strip. I think I got everything right side up, it looks like. Yep. Okay. And then this piece, which is about 10 inches long, is going to go on the bottom. So we're going to lay this down here. Again, we're going to use a 1/4-inch seam, and I might get a couple pins for this one. Get a couple pins. Pin my seams down. Sometimes I have a little trouble with things popping up, and I want to make sure that I don't get my words upside down. Whoops. Making sure that people are still hearing me okay, hopefully. Everybody must be concentrating very hard. Everybody's very quiet tonight. Okay, so I'm going to get this one on. Just a second here. I'm going to pin this end first. And it's about 6 by 10, the block, when it gets done. So with any luck at all, our block will fit. So it looks like everything's fitting pretty well. So I must have done okay. So let's go ahead and sew this one with our 1/4-inch seam. Ouch, I just poked myself with a pin. Okay. And I am going to go ahead. Oh, good. Thanks, Deb. Did you have a nice birthday? Okay, I'm going to do these. Hopefully I'm still straight here. See how I'm doing. Looks pretty good. Oh, people are coming in. Still coming in. It's hard. I know this is a hard time, but I've just been doing them this way for like 3 years. I really like. Oh, you're sewing along? Yeah, I know, but I do a little bit of sewing. I do a little bit of pre-sewing, Teresa. I'm sorry. Just because I like to keep the class moving along so that people aren't sitting here just watching the sewing machine run. I mean, I could do it that way. And we are going to do more of that in the Monday classes. So the pillow, I am going to sew the 2 blocks completely in class. And then I also pre-recorded and sewed them completely. So the ones on Monday. I don't like to have people have to sit here and watch the machine just run, you know. So, all right. So here is then this seam, and I'm going to go ahead and press this one open too. All right. I think we got our little top done. There's our little top, and hopefully they say it's supposed to be about 10 inches by 6. Oh, Teresa's having trouble even though she pre-sewed some of the blocks. Well, I know I sew kind of fast, and I'm sorry. And I figure you have the video to go back and watch again if you need some help. I'm so sorry. I know I do so fast. I've been doing a lot of these, and so I'm pretty quick at them now. Okay. Whoops, looks like I got a tail sticking out here. All right, so there's our top. turned out pretty good. So now we got to just put the back on. So the back is going to be the same as a lot of the ones we've done, you know, with the one piece that's longer. I'm going to put that one down first because I want that on the outside to make it easier to get my pillow in. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this on. And these are going to be, there's no like binding or anything on this one. So just going to be sewn on. Yep. So the class tomorrow night will be a little different because I am going to sew the entire block all the way out. And I'm going to do the same thing with, you know, both blocks. We'll sew out 2 blocks and from start to finish. So I didn't do any pre-sewing on those. The only thing I did pre-sew was I did another video with the other blocks, and those I did from start to finish as well. So, but I like to keep the Sunday night ones at around an hour, hour and a half, so that it's not so long. This time of year, especially, a lot of people are out doing things, you know, in the yard and stuff. And okay, so there's the first side. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and I pre-hemmed these too. You know, you take the one of the short ends and pre-hem it, roll it over 1/4 of an inch and another 1/4 of an inch, and then stitch it down. And then I did the same thing on one of the longer edges of this one. Okay, yes, class tomorrow night for the pillow is at 7. So make sure you pay attention to the events because I made those at 7 on Monday because I often have appointments on Mondays and I just wanted to make sure I had time to get home and get supper and everything. So yes, the Monday classes in June will be at 7. And the Sunday ones will continue to be at 6. All right, so I'm going to, now this is where that little overlap is. So I like to put a pin right in those little overlaps. What time zone? We are in Central Time Zone. I forget we have people all over. It's Central Time. So it's like we live in Iowa. So Central Time. All right, so and then I'm going to put, but Sweet Land of Liberty, I'm really looking forward to it. And I did 3 videos, extra videos. And so you'll have the whole pillow done. And it's a really fun, easy one to do. I just really found it very relaxing. Okay, so there's where those little overlaps are, and we're going to double sew those so that they stay nice. And I have trouble with those breaking open. So if I don't, you know, double sew over them, they like to break open. So I've still got my 1/4 inch seam, my Q02. And I'm going to start right on one of those, okay? And I'm going to tie off. And I'm going to go forward until I get to the other pin. And then I'm going to back up over that again, slowly. And then I'm going to sew back over it again. Because that way, those little overlaps aren't going to break open. I have a hard time with that, breaking open. Otherwise, when I go to put my pillow in. So we're just sewing all the way around this because we're doing that little envelope back, you know. Makes it easy to finish them. I'm going to go around the corner here. Sewing over that little bit of, you know, the little bit of rickrack. Whoops. Kind of overshot my corner here. I got to back up a couple stitches. There we go. Now I'm too far, so now I got to go forward a stitch. All right. There we go. Going down the other side. And I'm getting close to that other overlap. So we want to double sew that, or in this case, triple sew it. So there's where it starts. I'm going to go over to the second pin, and then I'm going to come back. I'm hitting the reverse button and coming back over it. And then going back over it again. That way it's good and strong there. Pull those pins out of there. Okay. Go around the last corner. Hope I have a pillow form. I just happened to realize I don't know if I have a pillow form for this one, so I hope I do. Otherwise, I'll show you the other pillow because it's done. think I've got one back behind me. Maybe not. I think I put them back in my bedroom, so I don't. So I won't be able to put it in the pillow form tonight for you, but you can see the one that I already have done. All right, so then, of course, we got that all done, and now we have to turn it right side out. But remember Grandma's trick, we don't cut these corners, because if you cut the corners, I will guarantee you that you're going to go through them. So I'm going to take my first finger and put it into the corner. Some of you may not have seen this. I have some new people on here tonight. I pull the seam allowance down to the stitching, and then I'm going to push it into the stitching and make the corner. Okay, I'm going to hold it with my thumb, and I'm going to push it out. And do that on all 4 corners. I'm going to pull that down to the stitching line, push it down. Okay, make the corner, and I'm going to hold it and turn it right side out. Okay, there's those 2 corners, and then I'm going to do the other 2. This is a great trick my grandma taught me. And then you don't trim through those ends. If you trim through those ends, I always go through them. No matter how careful I am, I go through them. I'm going to pull this down, push it in, make the pretty corner, hang on to it, and push it out. Okay. So there's our little top. Then I'm going to grab one of my favorite tools, my Floriani Turner tool. Love this. Okay. Isn't that a great trick? Yeah, my grandma was a really smart lady. She sewed a lot. Okay, we're just going to finish up those corners to make sure they're beautiful and pointy. Okay. Like that. And then I will press this after class. And there's the little top. Isn't that cool? But yeah, so I don't ever trim through the corners. It's so rare. Every now and then. Yep, that's every time I trim, I just go right through the corner. I very rarely do like this because that fabric is in there keeping me from pushing through the corner. Okay, so there is the top, and I'll show you my finished one. Sorry, I forgot that I took my pillows and put them back in my closet in my bedroom because I needed more room. I had a bag full of pillow forms back here, and they were in the way, so I moved him back there, but there's my little pillow. Isn't it cute? And with the little, and I make a lot of my pillow forms, and I showed you how to make the pillow forms in several of the videos if you need to go back and look at some of the old ones. But for the rectangle one, for the pillow form, if you want to make your own, I cut my pieces of fabric like my muslin. Yeah, I cut it 6 by 10 and then take a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, and that makes a beautiful pillow form. Okay. So and then the square ones, I do 8.5 by 8.5 and do the same thing, 1/4 inch seam. So I do most of my own just because I make so many of these. I've made, you know how many of these I've made? When I get all done, I will have made 48 pillows because I made all 24 of them twice. So I will have 48 pillows. Plus I actually had made some of them before that. So I probably have made over 50 pillows. So I had a lot of pillow forms. So there's the little Sweet Days of Summer, isn't it, darling? So I'm anxious to start the next one. I did the July one, so I wanted to show you the July ones here. Let me grab my pins so they won't all end on the floor here. I'm gonna put the camera up to say goodnight, and I'm going to show you the July ones. All right, let's see here. Get up on the other camera. So after the original problem with getting on, everything seemed to go okay tonight. So hopefully, were those magic pins? Yes, they were. These are the magic pins. They're up on our website too. These are the patchwork extra fine. So I made the white home pillow, but used vinyl for the state of Iowa with white dots on it. Oh, cool. Cool. Who said that? Mary Ann. Oh, cool. Yeah, I like that pillow. It turned out really good. Okay, let's see here. I need to find, here's my other pillows. So here's the July ones. These were really fun. And at the end of June, they have all these cute little felt flowers on them. And at the end of June, I'm going to show you how to use the Scan and Cut Auto Blade, the new Auto Blade. And these little fabric or felt flowers can be cut out with the Auto Blade. It's the new rotary Auto Blade is what I'm going to say. So that worked really well. And I've been working on playing around with the felt flowers with that. And so this is the rectangle one. So we'll do this one right after. We're going to do these after the 4th of July. So we're going to take the 4th of July weekend off, guys. So we'll do these right afterwards. But, you know, they're not really that patriotic. You can leave these out most of the summer. I mean, they just look summery. Okay, so this one with the bicycle. And then this one, it also has flowers on it. So this one has rolled roses too. And then the little daisies, but I cut those out with the that new rotary blade, and I'm going to show everybody how to do that. So if you have a Scan and Cut with the rotary blade, it's pretty cool to do the flowers. Otherwise, you can cut them out, but you have to use little scissors and cut them out. So Jan doesn't like little scissors too well. So anyway, these are the two for July. So I got these done. I haven't done August yet. Those are the last ones. Once we do August, we're all done. We've done them all. I can't believe we've been working on these for a year. It's been so fun though. I've really enjoyed them. Okay, so there's the little June pillow. Hopefully everybody is going to get theirs done too. This was a really fun, quick one to do. I really liked this one. And next week we will work on the little guy with the pineapple. And this is a different technique. Ready to make my second. Is that Lynn? Oh, you're getting ready to do the second one? Yeah, so here's this is the one we'll do next week with the little pineapple. Okay, and this is a new kind of a technique that we'll learn here. So that was kind of fun. It was with half square triangles. It's all raw edge, by the way. I don't know if you could see that. It's all raw edge. Is the pillow form instructions in Dropbox? No, I've done several, Cindy, I've done several videos that I've actually sewn the pillow. So if you go back to YouTube and find the playlist called Bench Buddies, if you go way back to the September one, I actually sewed out the pillow form and showed the whole pillow form and everything. So, but the pillow form for the rectangle one, cut it 6 by 10, 6 inches wide, 10 inches long, and then take a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, for this one. And I use muslin, some sort of a cotton fabric. And then the square ones, I make 8.5 by 8.5 squares and then do a 1/4 inch seam on them. Okay. All right. So then tomorrow night, come join me. Now, remember, tomorrow night, we're going to start working on this. This will be the whole month of June on Monday nights, and this will be at 7. So tomorrow night we're going to do, we're going to do the cherry block, and we're going to do the flag block. And we'll do it from start to finish together, okay? And then I did a video of the Sweet Land of Liberty block and the cake block, and those are done from start to finish. So you will have 2 videos tomorrow. Okay, 1 live and 1 pre-recorded. All right. So if there's any questions, get a hold of me through Facebook, message me, call me at the store at Shield Sewing Center. You can go to shieldsewingcenter.com and go into the contact form, and you can get me too. And give me a call at the store or whatever. And I will hopefully see a bunch of you tomorrow night when we can start Sweet Land of Liberty. So thanks everybody so much for coming. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.